these magazines and that tell us that we can't wear a bikini over 55, we're off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Quite right.
We can do what we blooming well like.
Afternoon.
Hello.
Before we go any further, please like and subscribe to us on YouTube.
And like and follow us on Facebook.
And follow us on Twitter. And don't forget to tweet.
And of course, follow us on Instagram. Yay!
Oh my
Sound
God,
like Miss Piggy now.
No, please don't do musical theatre at the end of it. Please stop.
Sherrie.
So now I want to introduce you to our guest for today, who's an old mucker of mine, known her since God was a boy, really. The wonderful Denise Welch. Come in, Denise. Hello.
Hey.
Welcome to the nest, darling.
Where are you?
I'm in London. I'm in that London, and I'm in very posh Chelsea.
Ooh.
Oh,
Are you though?
I am
So-
indeed.
I'm
Yes,
very
first of all,
happy for you.
how have you been doing with lockdown? Have you had a great lockdown or not?
To be honest, Sheza, I loved the early days of lockdown when the sun was shining and we were all sort of, I was trying to trust the government that we were all doing the right thing. And I was cooking meals and everything was relaxed and we all felt we were in it together. And I felt very unanxious. And Lincoln and I, both my boys were locked down together in Oxfordshire, so I knew they were fine. I knew they weren't getting on a plane, they weren't getting in a car. Because obviously my eldest son, as you know, Matty, travels internationally all the time, so my heart's always in my mouth. So there was kind of a peace to it all. And I think, like a lot of people coming out of lockdown and everything's quite unsure, part of it's exciting and part of it's making me a little bit anxious. Not in a terrible way, just like we all are.
Yeah, it is now, isn't it? It really is now. And just before we go any further, isn't it your wedding anniversary today?
It's my
Or was that
7th wedding
yesterday?
anniversary. Today.
Oh,
Congratulations.
7 years and I've got no itch. I'm not itching anywhere. No 7 years.
No.
So
I
now,
saw a picture
more
of you.
importantly, tell us about your book.
Me book. Well, it's been quite a busy few weeks promoting the book. So last September, some of you may know that I mean, Sherrie's heard me talk for years about my mental illness, which started when I had Matthew. So my clinical depression started as postnatal depression. And then unfortunately, and I want to say to any women who are pregnant or have just had a baby, many women will get postnatal depression and many will go on to make a full recovery. Sadly, it led to a propensity to clinical depression in me. I talked about it for 30 years. When I first started talking about it, I was a lone voice in the wilderness. Had I not had my family who understood I had a serious illness, I don't know where I'd be. But last September, I had my last, touch wood, bad episode. And my depression tends to be endogenous more than reactive. So it's a chemical imbalance, a hormonal imbalance. Whatever happens, a chaos is formed in my brain, and depression is like, I call it the unwelcome visitor. And I was driving up to the northeast with a girlfriend. We were talking about nothing but having a great time with godchildren in the back of the car to see my sister. And I got a tingling in my palms, a metallic taste in my mouth, and the color goes from my life. And basically, depression is what it says on the tin. It depresses every single emotion you have. It's not a persistent feeling of sadness like many people say it is. It's not. It's an inability to feel sadness or joy or love. And I impulsively picked up my phone and chronicled a 3-day episode of depression as I was living it. And until I was well, I wasn't aware of the reaction it had, but it was huge, of people relating to it, saying, you know, I've just seen my illness that I've had for 20 years on your video. People who'd never experienced it before saying, I now understand it more. So I got asked to do the book. I worried about it because I didn't know if I wanted to revisit the dark places to which I'd been, but I did do it. And the success of the book validates it. And it's wonderful, but it's also quite sad that so many people are relating to my story and still don't have a voice to talk about it themselves.
But
So
you
I'm
know
very
what, Denise, it's so
proud.
important to have your voice. The fact that you've said it, that you've written about it, the identification people have, it's the most moving and important thing for women to know there's no shame. It's part of, as you said, it's an illness.
It's like, my analogy, Harriet, is that this is a crippling, debilitating, often terminal illness. And all I want is parity between how mental health and physical health is taken. And I always say, and it may sound dramatic to those who don't understand, but if somebody we knew had a physical illness that was, dare I say, as terrible as cancer, nobody watching this show would go up to them and say, well, you look all right to me. I mean, you've had it a month now. So what I suggest is that you get yourself up, be strong, put your trainers on and go out for a bloomin' good run. You wouldn't say it.
No, you're right.
No,
You
you
just
wouldn't.
wouldn't. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I remember my mother used to say to me, always be nice to people, even in the supermarket or, in the street, because you never know what they're going through. And
That's
it's so
exactly
true.
it.
Because
That's
you can't
exactly
see.
it. And with our illness, we put on a painted smile. So that's exactly what you say is true. Because we are, because you can't see it, people tend to go through life putting on, it's the painted smile that we have to sort of, because a lot of people are shameful of it or still feel guilty. And we have no more control of getting it than getting, diabetes or any horrible illness.
Exactly.
Denise, what I think is very interesting, and I'd like you to talk more about this. What happened after your postnatal depression for this to carry on? How did you know this? Obviously, that was the start of it. And then what happened after? I mean, how long after the postnatal depression did you realise this was never going to go away? And you had another baby after that as well, didn't you?
I did, but not for 12 years, Deb. Not for 12 years.
Oh.
Louis was the best accident that ever happened to me, but we had we decided not to have another child because, as Tim, who I was married to at the time and is still my friend, as he said, he didn't want to lose his wife again, which is what happened. It's, people say to me, how long did your postnatal depression last? And it's like, well, 31 years, but it took me a long time to accept, many years to accept that this was something that I was going to live with. And to be honest, once I did accept that made me able to survive the illness, which is what the book is about. And it made me able to enjoy the periods of normalcy in between. So, and also the fear gets less as the time goes on, although that unwelcome visitor is always in my life. Most of the time, like, as I say, it's been 9-10 months now since it entered my home or my hotel room or my wherever I am. So I have, the fact is, I've been able to do the whole of lockdown not depressed. I've been overwhelmed and I've been sad at the state of the world and worried about our children and ourselves and everything, but I haven't been depressed. When my mum died, I didn't get depressed. I was grief-stricken and bereft and all those things that you should feel. Sadness is an emotion that you should feel. Depression stops you feeling that. So in answer to your question, Debbie, it was quite a long time before I realized that this was something that was going to be in my life. And so that's when I just decided that I would enjoy the times in between and that I would continue to spread the word.
How do you manage to work when this happens?
Well, I wrote a letter to my 16-year-old self for a magazine about a couple of years ago. And what I said to that person was, be kinder to yourself. There are times when I would have now said, I'm not well. And when I started, but what instead I did was I started to self-medicate to try and get through. And of course, this was during my Coronation Street days. And that was nothing to do with Coronation Street. It was the fact that once you're on a relentless soap opera machine, you are such an important cog in that wheel that if you're not there, the cog stops. In fact, it doesn't. There have been people who have come out of it because they've had a physical condition and somehow everything still continues to work, but you think that it's not. So it's been very, there's a few things that I've seen. You know how recently we have that drama channel and those shows that you've been in 100 years ago come up when you had a jawline. And you look at them, and there's times I've thought, oh my God. And I've said to Lincoln, my husband, I've said, I remember that day I was so poorly. And if you look at that, you would never be able to tell.
I mean, you know, I know you very well, and I know this has been documented 1,000 times, but I'm not talking necessarily about you now, I'm talking about other people. Does alcohol play a big part of depression, or is it completely aside from that?
Alcohol, right, this would be my advice. Giving up alcohol does not cure depression, but it makes the hugest difference because it stops compounding it and making it worse. I was on a self-destruct for 15 years. There were other circumstantial reasons as well. And also, there are no excuses. I never make excuses for the mess my life got into, but there are often reasons why it happens. And I started to self-medicate because we all know that, you know, in a normal drinking person's world, a lot of people in lockdown relate to that you've had a really horrible day, you feel a bit anxious, and you think, I can't wait to have a couple of glasses of wine to take the edge off. And the normal drinker can do that. But unfortunately, my taking the edge off would lead to the fear of the come down when I stopped being so great that I would continue on. Then I wouldn't go to bed, I wouldn't go to sleep, because at one time I was doing drugs as well. And that was, you know, you've got to remember that we're all, as older women, if I was going to get into drugs, cocaine in my case, I would have done it when it was all around. You know, we've all been young people where we could have gotten into that. I had zero interest in that world, zero interest. I was in my late 30s before I ever did that. And it was because someone told me it would make me feel better. And it did, initially, for 40 minutes, by which time the roll had started and I couldn't get off it. And my life is, I gave up alcohol 8 years ago, and I cannot tell you that any older woman watching this, or man, it is never too late to turn your life around. And although I still get depression, the periods are far less, and I know that I've done nothing that could have exacerbated that particular episode. So my advice to anybody who has depression or anxiety is, if you can take alcohol out of your life, do. Because it is, without a doubt, it makes it worse. But I also don't want people to think that it completely cures it, because it doesn't.
Pat, you're so inspirational, Pat. You are.
Thank you, Flower.
What's so amazing is not only have you done your book and everything else, you've also done so many other shows and so many other chats for people. It's amazing what you've done.
Well, thank you. I mean, I've done a lot of bad things in my life, Harriet. But if this is my legacy,
I know that.
I'm happy. Yeah, Sherrie will vouch for it.
Yeah,
Sherrie,
and Denise,
do them a lot of the time.
Denise, I have to tell you, I saw a photograph of you and Lincoln this morning, and you look fabulous in a bikini. You look really gorgeous, and the two of you are such a beautiful couple.
Well, thank you so much. That's so lovely. I mean, Lincoln is my hero, you know, and we did it together. And he, you know, I turned his life around. I remember his famous quote when he said, how come a couple of years ago, I was the PR and marketing manager for Stringfellows, and now I'm having breakfast with the crankies on Torquay Seafront.
He sounds like a lot of fun.
Was he always an artist? The thing is,
no,
he's artist. What happened?
No, not a professional artist. He was, he used to paint the madness, as he calls it. Lincoln had alcohol problems due to lots of issues that he'd never really resolved. His dad died when he was only 14. You know, all of these things that you just kind of bottle up. And it created this person. And he was working in, he was a sales director for a motor company when he was young, made lots of money, lost it all, became marketing manager for Stringfellows, which of course that lifestyle is very nocturnal. Yeah. So his partying wouldn't start till 2 a.m. And so by the time we met at a nightclub at 6 o'clock in the morning that doesn't open till 4.
Oh my God.
I mean, not many successful marriages start with that, but we realized we loved each other and we got sober together, because the only thing that was ruining our relationship was alcohol. And I see friends of mine who don't have an alcohol problem, but they go, well, we don't have a problem because we don't drink in the week, we drink at weekends. And it's like, yes, but at weekends, you throw crockery across the room, you black out, you can't remember anything, you're always going to get a divorce on a Monday morning. It's because of alcohol. So I'm not the drink police, but I'm aware how destructive it can be. And it's the only
wonderful, Denise.
The only legal drug.
You knew you had a choice. And that's the key. Because people often don't know they have that choice. They may not want it, but you were able to understand it and make it. So that's the most moving thing.
Fabulous.
Thank you.
I'm really inspired by you. I think it's just very interesting with people in our business. You know, we go through our business. It's all consuming, but yet we're at this point of our lives now, and we're different women. And I'm incredibly proud of you, and I'm incredibly proud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just think it's important for people to know that you can turn things around. You know, there's a lot of women of our age think, well, I've made me bed, I've got to lie in it. You don't need to.
No,
and I know
absolutely.
some of us are luckier that we have bigger choices, and I understand that. But the thing about the bikini thing is, it's not that I'm going, hey, look at me, 62, looking hot. It's because I think, do you know something? I don't look bad for an old bird. You know, I'm more grateful of compliments now because I know I've done it myself, rather than I used to be thinner, simply because of all the bad things in my life. So if I get a compliment now, it's nice. But it's more to say, these magazines and that tell us that we can't wear a bikini over 55, go off.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Quite right.
We can do what we blooming well like. I've got a young husband, he thinks I look hot. You know, high five to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Very hot.
I don't actually understand. I don't understand what the word bikini means, actually. I just have I have a tent. I can go with the word tent or teepee, but bikini means nothing to me. But thank you for the inspiration.
So I love the videos you do with Lincoln. They really make me laugh so much.
So funny.
Well, we sort of, I mean, it started because when I do like the bikini things for the sort of empowering women, and also I am an ambassador for Lighter Life, which is how I lost the 2 stone with CBT, because when I gave up alcohol, I did what a lot of addictive personalities do, is that I replaced the addiction with food addiction. And I became aware that I wasn't just eating thinking, well, I've given up drinking, I deserve to have a pie, which I did.
Yes.
But I very quickly realized that I was eating in the same way as that I was drinking. And so I knew I needed help with that. I also had put on 2 stone very quickly, which didn't suit me. My knees, my osteoarthritis in my knees, just with 2 stone, you know.
Yes.
Anyway, I followed the Lighter Life plan, and I lost 2 stone in 2 months. And I believe in the ethos of that with the CBT, because we have to change people's relationship with food. We all know how to diet. We all know if we don't put the food in our mouth, we'll lose weight. But it's the maintaining of the weight and changing the relationship. So then I started to do the bikini pictures. But of course, it helps if you've got to sort of try to do them in a self-deprecating way. So doing those funny videos, but then they became so popular. And then Lincoln in lockdown had a white crime investigator suit that looked like a hazmat suit. So we did a joke. Lincoln is somebody who's not the most, he's not a great lover of the great, of people generally, except the people he loves. So he's been trying to socially isolate since 1989. So this is a dream for him. He doesn't want to ever come out of lockdown and hug another person ever.
No.
So we started doing the isolator videos. And Lincoln got his own blooming fan club. And then we filmed Unbreeding, you know, the web series I did in lockdown. And Lincoln gets the part of my husband sort of stealing my career.
Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous.
Brilliant.
Stealing your thunder.
But now he's
very funny.
I didn't answer the question about him being an artist. That's what sobriety does for you. Lincoln started, he'd always painted, but put them under the bed. He painted the darkness of his life. And so now he is a professional artist. He's an international artist, and I couldn't be more proud of him.
Wow.
Amazing.
Incredible.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So yeah.
Huge congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Denise, you've been amazing. Thank you. Will you please come back and see us sometime soon?
I will absolutely come anytime. I absolutely have loved talking to you girls. And Jonathan Harvey sends his love to you all as well. Yeah, I did an interview with him at Hope Mill Theatre. You know, these things we're all doing to try and keep our beloved theatres alive.
Hope Mill, I know it well.
Well, I know you do. You gave your name there. Well, you know, what was your character called?
My Vera, darling.
You gave your Vera. We were talking about it the other night. That was one of the best shows I've ever seen. And your description, Harriet, of how there was no space in the wings, and literally people were stood like that, and then suddenly you came out into this Broadway show. It was unbelievable. Amazing.
Fabulous.
But thank you for having me.
Thank you. We'll see you again soon. Lots of love.
Very soon.
Bye.
Very soon.
See you
Bye,
soon.
darling.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, that was such fun. What a tonic, if I can use that phrase. Such a tonic. She really,
Absolutely.
It really is.
you up
That
on a
is an
Monday
inspiration.
afternoon.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
And
is
she
very
really
brave.
did look good in a bikini. Really fabulous.
Yeah, she does. She's
Yeah,
got
I'm
great
trying,
legs.
trying not to be bitter. Can you not stop?
I know.
No, I know. I was just thinking that. I'm trying.
Absolutely.
I'm not gonna. I can't even get one over my knee, let alone onto my body.
No, I'm not
No,
looking at
imagine
mine.
wearing a
Yeah, I have a
bikini
theory
then.
for all of this, which is why,
What?
because I have full length mirrors, in my bathroom, and it's
Yeah.
really
You do.
important because having that, you have to look at yourself, and then it really makes you think, I can't hide. I can't hide.
You can run, but you can't hide.
That's right.
It's true.
I hope you're
Oh
not
my
talking about my
God.
body, Sherrie.
What?
Anyway, what's happening on Wednesday, girls?
Oh,
Wow.
what to watch? Don't forget.
Yes.
If you're watching anything at the moment, we've watched everything. That's the problem.
We have. And I'm
Is there
watching
anything
it
else
again.
to watch?
Yes,
I know.
I've got a new program, and we've got who's coming in on Wednesday? I can't even remember.
Linda
Brains
Lizard.
gone.
Linda Linda is coming back.
Al Linda's coming
Al
on
Linda.
Wednesday.
Our Linda
Right.
doing part 2 of her makeup bag. Sorry about
Yeah.
the barking. And Dr. Tracy Mountford is back with us as well.
Again. Yeah,
Yeah,
lovely.
fabulous.
I'm sorry about the barking.
Woo.
There's not a lot I can do at this time.
I know. You've got an additional doggy, haven't you?
I have got an additional dog, guys.
Can I say one quick thing? What's so fantastic is we can start chatting and we're all kind of, as we are. And then we get, because we're all sharing our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, the whole dynamic of who we are changes. And that's why it's so important to be together and share our feelings and not be alone. Even if it's over, it doesn't matter, because we are in such a happy place now, having had a laugh and talking about things that are important and moving to us all. Sharing everything, it makes it so much better.
It really does. It really does. I know. I'm
Makes
so
a massive
grateful.
difference.
So
And of course,
grateful.
what to watch Wednesday, reruns of, what's your show called again, Sherrie?
Benidorm!
Yay! Of
See you
course.
Wednesday.
2 more to go.
Wednesday.
Ba-ba-ba-da,
See you Wednesday.
ba-ba-ba-da.
Benidorm.
Stop it, make it stop.
Benidorm.